For the first time in a long time, I get to do McGuire Mondays with my good friend Pierre McGuire, who's in Sweden. I'm in Canada. And Pierre, I haven't talked to you since the Leafs hired John Chayka as their GM. So I wanted to dive into that now that the dust has settled. Because my thoughts are, Pierre, they brought him because he's going to play the villain role. And he's going to do things with this team that no one else said, nah, I don't want to get my hands that dirty. Am I far off in thinking this?
No, I think you're pretty close to actually what might happen, and especially because Matt Sundin is a really good guy, number one. Number two, Matt has never really worked in hockey. Number three, he's one of the most revered players in the history of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So you got the guy that's on top that's probably going to be coordinating everything with ownership, and you got the numbers guy who's been in pro hockey, that has been a villain, that has done some tough stuff. He's probably going to do a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to either firing or hiring and implementing strategy, which maybe isn't going to be very popular with some people and very popular with other people. So I don't think you're too far off on that. I really don't.
So what you're saying is, Pierre, it's the classic good cop, bad cop situation.
Yeah, no, I think they made a movie about that too in hockey, which is pretty good on francophone language. So yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. The one thing I would say though is John Chayka, this is his second and probably last chance to do something in the National Hockey League as a general manager. So I think he's going to be on his best behavior when it comes to actually running hockey ideology through the department. And for Matt, it's going to be a slow learning curve in terms of understanding players in this generation and understanding the art of team building, because he's never had to do that before. But the one thing I would say, and I've talked about this before with other people, Dan, he should pick up the phone if he hasn't already and call Joe Sakic, one of his old teammates in Quebec, and say, hey, Joe, you've done unbelievably well with this whole thing. Tell me about it. Because I think Joe could help him a lot. I really do.
Joe Sakic. The one thing no one's been mentioning about Chayka, the more I talk to people in the hockey world, not to defend the guy or prop him up, but they said the reason all that stuff went down in Arizona was because of the ownership group. And essentially he was in the mud with them because they were in the mud. And so if you're around the mud, you're going to get dirty. It was a bad ownership group, and that's what led to all this.
Well, I don't know the ownership group that most of those people are alluding to, but I did interview with the ownership group, the last ownership group that was there. And I can tell you right now, that was maybe one of the most unique and different interview experiences I've ever had. So if that's the group that people are alluding to, I could see how they would formulate that opinion. That being said, if you think it's wrong and you're a position of power like he was there, you should tell the people that you're working with, that's wrong. I'm not doing that. They did a lot of things wrong there. They did a lot of things wrong there. And that's why the franchise never really hit the ground running, including where the building was built. So you look at it all. I hope he's learned his lessons. He probably has. And I just want, not just me, it's important for the league that Toronto be a good team, a formidable franchise, because when they are, everything is a lot better around the league. It's really an important franchise.
Can we sit here today and say with complete certainty that the Leafs take Gavin McKenna?
No, I don't think you can. I spent all last week, Dan, watching the top Swedish players play over here. And a lot of the young ones are going to be going to the World Championships, including Ivar Stenberg. So I don't think people can say that. Viggo Bjork is another one. I watched him play a ton last week. So I've seen their better players play over here. And a lot of people are saying, well, he could go there, or Chase Reed can go there. Gavin McKenna can go here. I think it comes down to evaluating a lot of tape, interviewing a lot of people, finding out what your fact finding has been from your scouting staff, and then you go forward from there. But just to anoint somebody number one right now, I think is a rush.
Okay. Is there a single player on the Leafs roster who is untouchable, who you say with complete certainty they will be there next year?
Austin Matthews. I cannot believe that they would trade Austin Matthews while he still has time on his contract when they're trying to sell him on this plan. And I don't think you get nearly the same type of compensations as you should for a star player like that. I believe Austin Matthews will start the season as a Toronto Maple Leaf.
So, okay, we have one rubber stamp from Pierre. Now, how do you fix the Leafs defense? Because every Leafs fan I talked to said They can't see anything anyway by way of draft. They look at future drafts. They're like, this can't be fixed. But obviously, John Chayka went into that meeting with Keith Pelly and said, "Oh, I'll fix this."
Well, everybody can say they're going to fix it. It comes down to what are the price points to get the players you need to fix it. I've talked about it on this show for over 2 years now. The Leafs defense isn't good enough. They're not a good enough puck moving defense. They're one of the easiest defenses in the league to forecheck. And because of that, they spend a lot of time in their own zone. And it's a harder game for their skill forwards to play because the puck's always pinned up against the boards or the glass. So it's really tough. So they're going to have to do some really good pro scouting. They're going to have to make some smart trades. They're going to have to look at the European free agent market. They're going to have to look at the National Hockey League free agent market. You know, I look at all the teams that say, I remember back in the day too, Dan, Quinn Hughes is too small. Lane Hudson is too small. Like I remember these conversations like it was yesterday. And people got that wrong. A lot of people got that wrong. There are a lot of players that are capable of playing at those types of positions. They need an opportunity. Now, you can't have a defense full of those guys, but you need some of those guys. And I remember coming on here with producer Tim and with you and with Kyle and talking about the Leafs need a true power play quarterback. They need an elite number one puck moving defenseman. And for whatever reason, they chose not to do it. They've never tried to go down that road. They can say whatever they want. They never did.
Leafs fans are sitting watching the second round of the playoffs, and whether they know it or not, they're watching this Habs team saying, "Why can't we be like them? Why can't we have the excitement that that fan base has around that team? Why can't we be like the Montreal Canadiens?"
Well, they were bad for a long time, but the Canadiens were really smart in terms of their approach to the amateur draft. Demidoff is a draft, Hudson is a draft, Fowler is a draft, Dobish is a free agent signing out of Ohio State. Like they were smart in terms of how they went about their business. Carrier was a steal. When you look at the Carrier deal with Nashville, that's a steal. So you just have to look at how they were able to do it. You know, they traded a real good player, Emil Heineman, and I know people are going to say, "Well, he's a depth player. He's better than a depth player," and they get Noah Dobson. You know, he's been a stout defender for them. Mike Matheson, they got him for Petrie. I mean, you can go down the line. They made some shrewd acquisitions at the draft. They made some great pro player personnel decisions, and now they're going to be good for a long time. And look, this regime has been great. Mark Bergevin deserves credit for one key deal, and that was trading Max Pacioretty for Nick Suzuki. Like it's hard to get a number one center in the draft. They were able to do it in a trade. That's unbelievable when you think about it.
People watching that series have also pointed out that Connor Timmins, he sees a lot of ice for the Sabres, and then they scratch their head that he couldn't even get in the lineup for the Leafs. Make that make sense.
I can't. And you know what? It's interesting. I remember doing a lot of games in Toronto back in the day, and Timmins was just starting to break through. And I remember talking with him once. I said, "Kid, if you just keep this up, you're going to have a heck of a career. These people are going to love you." And for whatever reason, and I don't know why, they didn't like him or they didn't want him around. And eventually he goes to Pittsburgh and then eventually finds his way to Buffalo. Connor Timmins is a good player. He's a real good player, and he's an Ontario kid. I don't get that stuff sometimes. I really don't.
Pierre, you'll love this. The hockey world is so small, and Canada is like a small city in a way. I'm watching the Sabres game the other night, and they pan the bench, and I'm like, the hell? That's Marty Wilford behind the bench. Marty Wilford and I grew up together. Obviously lost touch. I'm texting friends. I'm like, Marty's an assistant coach with the Buffalo Sabres. So I sent my well wishes to him through buddies. And that's how small this country is, where a guy I've known for 40 years is behind the bench in the NHL.
And he's done a really good job for Lindy Ruff and the Buffalo Sabres, just like Seth Appert, the other assistant, has done a really good job. They're a very well-coached team. Now, I don't know if they're going to have enough to get it over the finish line against Montreal. I really don't. I think some of their guys are banged up from their Boston series, and Montreal got through that Tampa series a little bit more unscathed than I thought they would be, Dan. But the truth of the matter is Montreal's got way better depth than a lot of the pundits said going into the playoffs, and I'm just not sure that Buffalo is going to be able to match that. All that being said, Buffalo is going to be good for a long time. Montreal is going to be good for a long time. You know, Florida Panthers. I just spent a good portion of an afternoon on Saturday afternoon with a lot of players from Finland. And, you start talking to the guys and they're all talking about how great this player is or that player is. And you're starting to go, okay, Florida's going to be back as well. So it's interesting for the Leafs. They're going into this retool, I guess they want to call it, at a time when a lot of teams in the Atlantic are really good and getting better.
Whoever comes out of the Buffalo Montreal series, they're running into the most well-oiled hockey team I've seen in a long time, the Carolina Hurricanes.
They are, and the best part about it is this is for Carolina fans. I've never seen, Freddie Anderson play as well as he is right now. Freddie Anderson, Dan, is playing phenomenal hockey.
Another Leaf.
He is another Leaf, and you look at the improvement of some of their defensemen, whether it's Keandre Miller, Jalen Chatfield has been unbelievably improved. Gostisbehere, never any defense, all offense. Now all of a sudden he plays defense. Timmy Gleason deserves a lot of credit there, former first-round pick of the Ottawa Senators. He's done a really good job with that defense. Their special teams are exceptional. There's a lot to like there, and whoever would have thought, nobody before the playoffs started thought that Taylor Hall would be in the discussion to win the Conn Smythe, that they would be getting all kinds of output like they are from Logan Stankoven, and that Jackson Blake would be ripping it up as a right winger. Nobody thought that before the playoffs started. Nobody.
How nervous is the league right now, knowing Carolina's through? You've got of your remaining teams, Buffalo, Montreal, Anaheim, Vegas, Minnesota, and Colorado. Those are not big TV markets.
They're not. One of the real windfalls in the United States for the TV ratings has been the carryover from the Four Nations event last year and also the Olympics this year. Those two events help really bring American eyeballs to hockey and how competitive it can be. So that's really helped them on the U.S. side of things. If, heaven forbid, and please, if you're a Buffalo fan, this is not against Buffalo. It's about TV numbers. If Montreal goes down, the TV numbers in Canada are just going to perish. And it's going to be really tough, obviously, in Canada. And yeah, the one thing I'll say about the Buffalo market and the Vegas market, the numbers are very good there locally. So that's good news. But yeah, you're right. This is not a dream where you have New York, LA, Chicago, Boston, Philly involved. It's not where you want to be on TV side of things.
Unrelated to all that, since I haven't talked to you in a while, I haven't been able to discuss Connor McDavid with you and the Edmonton Oilers. What do you see happening there? He's got 2 years on his contract. Our team's going to be spending the summer throwing everything at the Oilers in a deal to try to get McDavid, or is that just going to be pointless because McDavid's not going anywhere?
Well, I think people will try to knock on the door and see if he is available. And if Stan Bowman is smart, he'll say quietly, we're dealing with 4 teams. Maybe he's not, but he'll say that. And give me your best offer. Let's see what you got. And if the offer blows him out of the water, then maybe they do that. But the one thing I'd say about Connor, the fact that he signed more than a 1-year extension says that he's committed to Zach Hyman. He's committed to Leon Draisaitl. He's committed to Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. He's committed to Darnell Nurse. He's committed to those guys. He cares about those guys. He wants to win with those guys. If there are going to be massive changes in Edmonton, and it pains me to say this because I've been let go as a coach, and I don't like it. I could see where there could be coaching changes there, especially with some of the guys that are available on the market. But I'm not pushing for that. But I do think realistically that could happen. That could happen. I think that would be some of the biggest changes that would happen in Edmonton. I don't see McDavid going anywhere, but I do think people will be calling up and saying, hey, what's it going to cost to get him?
But McDavid in those postseason comments saying we were an average team. So, behind closed doors, he's telling them, guys, build me a team. Yeah, you got 1 year.
Well, part of the problem there, and it's been a problem, Dan, you and I have talked about this a lot, along with Kyle. Their team defense stinks. And I know people are going to make excuses and they're going to say, well, Leon does this and Connor does that and Ryan does this and, Zach does that. I don't care what they do. I coached a lot of really good players that were as good or better than those guys, and they were committed to defense in the playoffs. That team has never been committed to playing defense as a team. And because of that, they're not very good when it comes to playoff hockey. And people can say, well, they've been in the final 2 years in a row. I'm going to say that's a bunch of malarkey. It doesn't really count because they're not in it to go to the final. They're in it to win it. and they're not going to win it playing the style that they have. So I think that they can be a better team. I do think they need more commitment from their star players when it comes to playing team defense, and they need to upgrade their goaltending and they need to upgrade their defense. And if they don't do that, they're not going to win. It doesn't matter who they have up front.
I watched every Oilers game because of my boy Connor Ingram in net, and I had to explain to people the next day after they lose like 6-4. I'm like, he didn't let in a single bad goal. They were all off something or a 2-on-1. And yeah, that points to they need to solidify that back line.
Yes, and we agree 100%. And this has been going on for a long time in Edmonton, Dan. It's not like it's just a newfangled thing that we're dreaming up. This has been going on for a while.
Okay, let's do 1 degree of Pierre McGuire. I turn around, point to a hockey card, and we see Pierre McGuire's connection to this player. I don't think I've ever gone lower right. So we've got Stéphane Lebeau, Montreal Canadiens.
Oh, boy. Little undersized guy. Great skill. Amazing skill. Watched him play a lot and coached against him too, actually. Phenomenal finesse player down the middle. Had a knack for getting big-time points. I think Jacques Demers and Jacques Laperriere probably squeezed the most out of him of any of the coaches that he ever played for. A gentleman, too, a very good gentleman. So my thought of him is coaching against him when he was a player and admiring as a smaller guy in a very tough era in the NHL, having a lot of success.
Hey, and anyone who comes out of Shawinigan, you know they're going to be a good player. He played for Shawinigan in the queue.
There's a kid named Marc-Andre Fleury who's not too bad from there.
He ended up playing, Stéphane Lebeau, 373 games in the NHL. Good, 277 points.
That's what I'm telling you. His skill level was extremely high. What do they have him listed for size there?
They have him listed at 5'10", 172.
There you go. I'm going to tell you, Dan, not thinking that tall, not thinking that heavy.
Thanks, Pierre.
Oh, my pleasure, Dan. Thank you so much for having me.